Maddy Glab here with 49ers team reporter Keiana Martin. Keiana, thanks for taking the time to be with us today. Now, the 49ers, they're 5-6 heading into week 13 here. And 5-6, it's not like you're having an amazing season, but I think with what this team has been able to work with player-wise, I think it's pretty incredible that this team has just been able to field a roster through week 13. You look at some of the injuries that have happened, some of the guys out for the season, the current IR, I think it's up to 15. I'm sure throughout the season, it's been in the 20s with guys who are on and off. Big name players like Jimmy Garoppolo and George Kittle are on the IR. So with all those names, with the amount of people who have been injured this season for you guys, what has been the most impressive part in your eyes about how this team's been able to do it?
You said it perfectly. You look at these injuries that the 49ers have dealt with literally since the season opener, but still managing to stay afloat at 5-6. I think it's a huge kudos and a huge credit, not just to the 49ers scouting department, but also general manager John Lynch being able to scout some of that backup talent to be able to fill this roster. And a word that can be used to define some of this talent is quality talent, having guys that are able to step up and fill these starting roles that they didn't necessarily believe that they will be filling at this point in the year. But it's obviously been a strange year for the 49ers. You're right. They've had the most guys on IR this entire season than any team in the NFL, but somehow still managing to stay afloat. So again, it's a huge kudos to the 49ers scouting team being able to bring in those guys to help this team keep churning.
Speaking of guys who have probably not thought they would play the role they would play this year, Nick Mullins is the quarterback right now for the 49ers. He had a pretty good game against the Rams. The 49ers had a big win against the Rams, 23-20. Robbie Gould came in clutch with a game winner in the fourth quarter and also hit a field goal to tie the game in the fourth quarter. Nick Mullins was 24 of 35, 252 yards. He did throw an interception, but his stats looked a lot better than they have been as of late. So I guess, what did you see from the 49ers in that game that you haven't maybe seen yet this season?
I think fight is the perfect word to define what we saw in that 49ers team just a week ago in week 12 against the Rams. You're coming in shorthanded. That's been the storyline this entire season. You're without your starting tight end. You're without your starting quarterback, and we can go down the roster. Every single position group on this roster at some point has been hit, but this team still has continued to rally together and should get that win, especially against the Rams. But looking at a guy like Nick Mullins, as the season goes on, you can tell he's getting a little more comfortable in the offense. He's now in his fourth season, so there's no excuses. You should know this playbook like the back of your hand, but you're going through this carousel of players that are in and out of the lineup. But still with that, this 49ers team is somehow keeping it together and managing to stay, again, like we just said, managing to stay afloat as this season progresses. So if anything surprised me about this team, or what I learned most coming out of that win, and it's just the fight of the guys in that locker room. And I think one of the themes of that game was also getting some of those key players back. You look at Raheem Mostert, you look at Deebo Samuel and Richard Sherman. Getting guys like that definitely is a boost for this 49ers locker room. It was very evident on Sunday.
Yeah, those are three big names in the league. And for the 49ers, Deebo Samuel had a great game against the Rams, 133 receiving yards. I would expect he's going to try to do much of the same against the Bills. Hopefully our guys can lock him down, but that remains to be seen. Speaking of the 49ers offense, how has this identity changed with the offense? How have they changed as a whole? How are they being called differently without Jimmy Garoppolo and one of the best, if not the best, tight end in the league in George Kittle?
Yeah, identity is a great word, and that was a word that was kind of circling around this locker room earlier in the season. What is this 49ers identity? You're missing a number of key players, and I feel like they're still trying to figure that out. But one thing that we've noticed is that having a guy like Raheem Mostert in the offense, you just see an uptick in play. You look at the 49ers production with him in and out. There were 3 straight games where the 49ers couldn't amass over 55 yards on the ground. You put Raheem Mostert in the lineup, and that drastically changes. Same goes for Deebo Samuel. Kyle Shanahan said he's not a guy that gives a lot of compliments. If you try to get him to give a guy a compliment, really, really tough. But he just couldn't. He had to give in last week, having Deebo Samuel out there. And he's just like, this kid is good. He's like, he still has a lot to work on. I'm not going to give him all the credit. But just even when Deebo Samuel's out there in practice, and you just see an uptick in energy of all of the guys on the field. And you also see that in the game, what he's able to do. You just gave his stats, 133 yards. That was a season high for him. So just having key pieces like that, being able to step up and also be healthy and available has certainly benefited the 49ers, especially in the second half of the season.
Yeah, having guys like that healthy, it seems like the 49ers are going to have a lot more of a balanced attack maybe than they have had in previous weeks. I think you guys got that back a little bit more in week 12 with Raheem Mostert being back and Deebo Samuel. Brandon Ayuk will probably play for you guys on Monday. So yeah, it's not going to be a cakewalk for the Bills. It's not going to be a cakewalk for the San Francisco 49ers either. I expect this to be a pretty competitive game between the two teams here, regardless of what the record is. We hear the players say so many times, it's the NFL. It's hard to win in this league in any game, no matter how many players are injured or not. But let's talk about the 49ers defense. I mean, through this all, they have seemed to be the rock, and they've remained strong, even through a bevy of injuries on that side. You know, 2 more players were added to the IR, 2 corners this week. But you look at the defensive statistics, and you guys are ranked 11th, allowing only 23 points per game. You have the 4th best passing defense in the league, allowing just over 200 passing yards a game. So how has the defense been able to be that strong through this season?
This is going to go back to my very first answer. And it's not to sound like a broken record, but it just cannot be overstated. And that goes to, it's one of 2 things. Oh, it's both of these things. One is the depth. It's the 49ers able to have that quality in positions, which have really been relied on quite often this year. And then number 2, I've got to give credit to 49ers defensive coordinator Robert Saleh. I mean, I
knew you were going to say his name.
Being able to do what he's done, being shorthanded, you don't have your Nick Bosa's, your D Fords, a number of players. You're without Richard Sherman for 9 weeks of the season. You get guys like Jason Verrett stepping up, looking kind of reminiscent of his 2015 Pro Bowl self. Him coming in, and we know his name has been floating around this head coaching ranks or whatever might be coming up in the next few weeks. But a lot of credit is rightfully deserved to Robert Saleh. 49ers defense sitting in about the top 10 in a number of categories, despite being without several key players. So depth and Robert Saleh, I think, deserve a lot of credit of this defense continuing to play at a high level.
Yeah, Robert Saleh is one of those coordinators that's well known amongst the league. And when you look at both of the teams and Kyle Shanahan coming in at the same time as Sean McDermott came in with the Bills, I mean, behind them are some awesome coordinators. And that's a big part of how the Bills have been able to be so good, is because of their defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, much of the same for the 49ers, and kind of how the programs, the organizations have been put together. It seems like there's a lot of similarities between the two. But we've talked about the big names. We've talked about Nick Mullins having a better game last week, Deebo being back, Brandon Ayuk being back for this game, Raheem Mostert back in. Who are some of the under-the-radar players that Bills fans and Bills players need to look out for come Monday night? Give us the tea here.
All right, going to give you guys a little bit of the tea. Don't hold this against me. Don't use it against us either. All right. So one of the names that I think is very important and that does not get nearly enough credit than he deserves, and that's defensive lineman Carrie Hyder Jr. He came from the Dallas Cowboys last season. They grabbed him this offseason. And he currently leads the team with 39 quarterback pressures, leads the team with 7.5 sacks. When I talk about depth, he's the name that comes to mind. I got a chance to talk to him a little earlier in the season, and I talked about him coming into the 49ers organization. He didn't expect to be a starter, and he was fine with that. He said when he signed with this team, he saw who the 49ers had, and he said, okay, that's fine. I'm good playing behind these guys. And now, after 2 weeks into the season, you're without your Nick Bosa, your D Ford, Eric Armstead, he's still there. You have Javon Kinlaw, but there's no Solomon Thomas also. So he's stepping up without so many of the 49ers key players and being able to play at a very high level. He cannot be he can't be overstated what Carrie Hyder has brought to the defense. And another name, well, I feel like Bills fans might know him, but that's Fred Warner, 49ers middle linebacker, who they have the campaign going. All pro Fred is what his teammates call him. He's having a fantastic third year in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers actually spoke to him after the game. Fred Warner was mic'd up, and he said, you know what? The film doesn't lie. You are one of the best linebackers in the game of football. And to get that type of praise from a future Hall of Famer certainly means a lot. So those are two names that I would say Bills fans might want to look out for on defense. And then you name some of the others, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, having both of them on the field together. Kyle Shanahan loves having some of his, let's see, what do we call it? His wizardry. And two of those guys certainly are involved in what Kyle Shanahan likes to do on offense.
Yeah, when I was looking up stats and just players for this game, trying to figure out, okay, the 49ers have so many injuries. Who are the guys that are making plays? I looked up Carrie Hyder. I'm like, he's like tied for 9th in the league in sacks right now, a name that I wasn't expecting to see way up there in the stat sheet for the 49ers and the NFL as a whole. But Keiana, thanks for letting us know a little bit more about the 49ers. I'm sure everybody who's listening, whether it's in their living room or in their car, they're doing all the game planning now that they need to be doing in order to be able to call this offense and defense for the Bills from their living room on Monday night. So appreciate the time, appreciate the insights. It'll be a good matchup on Monday night.
Yeah, can't wait. And for all that's traveling, safe travels to Arizona.
Yeah, seriously. It'll be a weird one in that you guys are not going to be playing at home. We are, of course, expecting to go out to Santa Clara to play the game, but yet the Bills are headed back to State Farm Stadium for the second straight away game, Keiana, where they lost in a Hail Murray is what everybody's calling it. So hopefully they can just exercise those demons and the same thing can't happen. I know you're probably wishing otherwise, though.
Sean McDermott said it best. Each game is different. You can't go into one game looking at what happened in the past. So it's a brand new week, Bills fans, and I am excited for a really, really good game.
So true. Thanks, Keiana.
You're welcome.